And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I am Michael DeLon, and today I'm talking with Eric Broad. Eric, thank you, sir, for spending some time with me today.
My pleasure.
It is
Excited
going
to
to be
talk today.
a great conversation. Eric is an attorney. He is an entrepreneur who started a law firm, Bowery Legal, and they work with startup companies, private businesses all across the nation, maybe the world, helping them in all kinds of legal things from startup formation and things. He positions himself as, I love this, ready, the outside in-house counsel for these companies. And I thought, well, that's really cool. So you work with a variety of businesses. And my question really is, Eric, how in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
Well, it was a long path. It started with some of it started before law school, actually, in my mid-20s. I Well, even before that, I was in undergrad at Tulane University in New Orleans. Was in love with live music. I stayed in New Orleans after I graduated for a little bit and worked in live music.
Cool.
I had a great time, burnt myself out a little bit, and I was looking for, what do I want to do next? I don't know if I want to work in music. I don't know what I want to do. My sister was in law school at the time. I found legal education interesting. I thought that there were a lot of kind of career opportunities in law that I found interesting. I was in my mid-20s and I thought, I think I want to do this, but it's expensive and it's a lot of time, and maybe I want to just do something for me before it's too late. A little bit of an adventure. And so I actually bought a one-way flight to Indonesia and spent 2.5 years out there. And while I was there, I met a bunch of interesting people doing a bunch of interesting things. And one of the projects that I latched onto and actually became a full-time employee of was a project called Meaningful Broadband. We were working with the governments of Indonesia and Thailand on an internet infrastructure development project for the poorer populations in those countries, and really in any developing countries. And working on ways to make internet and the things that come from internet are used on internet usable, affordable, and empowering to these poorer populations, so you can help them kind of leapfrog into technological advancement. And in doing that, I did a lot of kind of development related work and consulting with the governments of Indonesia and Thailand, but also worked with a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of tech companies, and realized that to the extent that you can really cultivate these parts of a company, or of a country, sorry, or an economy, you can really kind of inject new blood and new spirit into some of these places. And then you turn around and you look at the U.S., and the U.S. is kind of case in point in a lot of ways, the way that technology and entrepreneurship has really driven the U.S. throughout its history.
Yeah.
And it's only kind of accelerated with the ability for anyone, people like you and me, and all of the people that I work with, to much more easily start their own company.
Yeah.
So I really started to become interested in entrepreneurship and in working with kind of early stage companies or startups, which is a bit of a misnomer. It can really be anything from the early stages all the way up to pre-IPO. Then I went to law school and I studied a bunch of different things, and I actually loved the legal education. I found it to be somewhat of like a philosophy education, almost philosophy of society in a lot of ways. And then I came out and I ended up, the first job that I had was at one of the biggest law firms in the world, Latham and Watkins.
Wow.
And I thought that I wanted to do project finance and then eventually find my way into a job at the World Bank or a development bank. I wanted to do development work. I wanted to get back to what I was doing previously. And when I got started, it just wasn't resonating with me. The work, the subject matter, some of the deals you work on, some of the projects are, you're working with the biggest businesses and biggest banks in the world. You're doing, $100 billion deals, and all the big banks are involved, and these giant project companies are involved, and a deal can last for several years. If you get stuck on a deal that you don't love, too bad.
Oh.
You're in it, right? And so I kind of forecast out over the course of the next several years of my life and said, I don't think that this is a good fit for me. Not that it's not a great fit for some. Um, and I started to look into what I wanted to do, and I kind of came upon this practice of law. They have a lot of big firms, emerging companies. Working with a lot of it's like tech or tech enabled companies, either
Yeah.
venture back or seeking to be venture backed, and then also with the investors on the other side of things. And I thought to myself, this really gets to what I was doing and what I loved when I was in Indonesia, and what inspired me to continue that work even after I left, and kind of came back and started actually interviewing with other firms because they didn't have a practice group in
Yeah.
Latham in New York, even though they did in California and in Boston. And serendipitously, as I was preparing to move to another firm, the New York office announced we just hired a partner from Oric in New York, and we're bringing him over. And we do this in all these other offices, but we're going to do it here now. Um, and I think it was the day that they sent the announcement. I went down to his office and I shut the door behind me and I said, I want to do what you're doing. Take me with you. How can I, I'm literally preparing to leave to do this somewhere else. I actually love the firm. I liked where I was. I was in a good spot. I had, friends there, everything. And so I switched over and I ended up staying there for several more years, a lot longer than I
Wow.
ever expected to be at a firm of that size. Um, yeah. And I mean, the rest in terms of the area of expertise is history. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's more in terms of how I got from there to here, but yeah, that's really the
Then
story.
how'd you take the leap to entrepreneurship though? Because that has to play into this too. Because that's
Yeah. So a bunch of things happen. I mean, I don't know how it works with other people, but I think that I'm in this interesting area where lawyers are famously risk averse. I think as far as lawyers go,
yeah.
I'm a pretty big risk taker. So I guess in that sense, it's not that surprising that I went this way. But um, philosophically, uh, you know, 5 to 6 years ago or so, my mother passed away
Mm.
uh, while I was still at Latham and Watkins, and I mean, she was one of my closest friends and mentors, biggest influences and role models, and just kind of everything rolled up into one, as
Yeah.
people's parents can tend to be. Uh, and when she passed away, she was 65, and she was an attorney a lot of her life.
Mm.
And she actually told me, "Don't go to law school. You should go to business school. You know, you should do something more entrepreneurial."
Yeah.
And I didn't listen to her that time. I listened to her a lot of the other time, but or the other time she would say things. But yeah, I mean, I started to put a lot of thought into, she passed away at 65, and she spent a lot of her life, as a lot of people do, thinking, I'm saving money for retirement. I'm doing this for retirement. I need to build my career for my kids, and just everything that goes into the decisions that people make in life. And I thought a lot of what she did put me in a position where I didn't have to feel maybe as tied down as she or a lot of people in the older generation, my parents' generation, might have felt by their career. And I didn't necessarily want to be at a big firm for the rest of my life. There's a lot of aspects of that, the work style and the lifestyle that didn't resonate with me for the long term. They're great places to be to learn your craft and to hone your expertise. And I certainly did while I was there. Um, but something like that happens, and you start to think a lot
Yeah.
about life and what it means and what you're doing and where it's going. And I eventually ended up leaving Latham. I moved over to Gunderson Detmer. I was ready for a new challenge. I was ready for something different. And was an opportunity that came up. And so I took it to see if maybe would kind of solve some of the things that I thought were not exactly what I was looking for in that world. And it solved some of them, but not quite enough. Um, And then I kind of got to a point where I was interviewing a lot of companies to potentially go in-house. Some of those opportunities are really, really interesting. But there's an aspect sometimes, and I talk to some attorneys who've gone in-house at companies, and they say it's very different when you go from a firm to in-house at the company. You go from being a profit center to a cost center, and you're part of the team. And a lot of times, and it's not necessarily the worst thing, but you can tell,
Yep.
a little bit. You're not the lifeblood of the business. You're the naysayer in
Yeah.
a lot of ways. Um, and so I put some thought into that. I wrapped everything up in a ball, and I got to a point where I decided I like what I do. I'm good at it. I don't necessarily love where I've been doing it all this time, but thankfully I've made it enough time to develop the expertise that I need to have the confidence and experience to go and do this on my own. So why don't I give it a shot? I was single at the time. I
Yeah.
still don't have kids, although potentially sometime in the next year or two. So no time like the like
That's right.
the present back then to take a risk. So I decided, let's go. And the
Yeah.
final point was I was like, I work with, I talk to people literally every day who are in the process of setting up their own business or taking a risk that is way more impressive in a lot of ways than mine, right? Someone who is creating a new business from whole cloth. Here's a problem I've identified in society or in the economy or whatever it is, and I'm going to solve it. And I'm going to bootstrap, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to raise money. I skipped a lot of those steps,
Right.
right? I'm not starting something new. It's not so. In a lot of ways, it was kind of like you only have to do a quarter as much as your clients are doing every day. So
Yeah.
why don't you just give it a shot and see how it
Yeah.
goes?
Well, that's good.
So
You mentioned a couple things, confidence, which is great, but the word came to me is launch. As I think about who you
yeah,
are and who you help. So these budding entrepreneurs who have this idea, I see a problem, I want to go fix it. I want to go and as an entrepreneur, I mean, we are big picture, let's run after it. And so many times we don't think about the legal side of things. We just run.
yeah,
And it's one thing to have and I hope I don't step on anybody's toes. It's one thing to have an attorney who's an attorney who understands being an attorney, and that's
yeah.
good. But to have an attorney who's an entrepreneur who knows about entrepreneurship and understands the law and how to massage it. Talk a little bit about that in your expertise in not just law, but how do you help? How do you work with these startups? Maybe there's a better word
Yeah.
there. Right? How do you do that and you connect with them from the entrepreneurial heartbeat passion side, but you bring all the legal stuff that they need so that when they get to the IAPO place, they don't go, oh man, I forgot something.
Yeah.
Talk about
Yeah.
that.
I mean, you brought up a couple of interesting points there. I mean, number one is, we do as attorneys for companies, business attorneys, we do corporate law. We help companies get set up, raise money, bring on employees, issue equity, all of those commercial agreements, all those things. But not all corporate attorneys are the same.
Yeah.
Startup companies, especially tech startups that are trying to set up in the way where they're going to potentially want to raise from VCs, you want to make sure that you're working with someone who has the right kind of experience working with emerging companies, working with tech and venture-backed attorneys, because there are market standards, and a lot of law is about market standards. You can words on a page, you can write up a contract and you can sign it, but it doesn't mean it's going to do what you want it to do, and it doesn't mean investors who look at it are going to say, yeah, that's right, that's the way that we would do things. There's no issues here. Here's our money, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can have you want to make sure you're working with a corporate attorney who has experience in this stuff. Um, and to your point of having done something entrepreneurial myself, one of the things that I love about what I do in getting to work with entrepreneurs, especially, I mean, a lot of areas where we can add the most value is early stage companies for first time founders, people who they're really going out there on a limb, and they may know how to code, or they may have the perfect kind of product or marketing mind, but they've never done this before, and they need someone that they can trust and lean on. And in a lot of ways, we're not just legal counsel. We're a trusted advisor across a lot of things. A lot of what you're doing in the early stage of a company is
Yeah.
not just legal, it's commercial, it's everything tied up in a bundle. It's emotional. Founders are trying to figure out equity splits and uh, should we be subject to vesting? Why? A little bit of potential mistrust as you're negotiating things. And so there's a lot of kind of human elements in there.
Yeah.
And I think that, having kind of gone through something similar on my own just allows me to be able to relate that much more to what these founders are going through, what these entrepreneurs are going through. And sometimes it's scary. And sometimes
Yeah.
they're full of anxiety about these things. And just being able to kind of to empathize and help them to take a step back and to kind of talk
Yeah.
through it with them with similar experience of my own,
Yeah.
I certainly think has been invaluable in the way that we're able to kind of work with our clients and help
Well,
think through some of these things with them.
100%, dude. And what we haven't talked about that you and I talked about before we ever got on the air is that you're married.
Yeah.
Your wife used to be an attorney. Now she's a business owner. And the struggles of just that. But
Yeah.
when entrepreneurs come with new ideas, it's not just the idea, it is the relational component that you can bring to the table at some level to go, okay, my wife is not on board with this or something. What do you and it's understanding there, but also helping those entrepreneurs think down the road a bit to make sure that as you structure that company, somebody told me this years ago, and I assume it's true, I don't know, that when Sam Walton started Walmart,
Yeah.
he set up the legal structures and the entities and all that in such a way that he has saved his family nearly $1 billion in taxes and things because he set it up. The structure of his company and everything was set up at the very beginning. One store, right?
Yeah.
And I went, well, now that's kind of brilliant because most people don't do that. So if you're a startup tech company and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to raise money, I'm going to have an IPO, I'm going to make billions of dollars or whatever, you might want to reach out and talk to Eric because there are probably some things you need to put in place now, right?
Yeah. I mean, one of the ways that I describe it, and this was actually, my the partner that I was working with at Latham, who was a mentor of mine for many years, used to kind of say something similar, which is, again, I mean, especially for first time founders, it's like you're living a movie for the first time. I've seen this movie hundreds of times, right?
Yep.
It doesn't always have the same beats, but generally it follows the same plot line. And I can, if you're an early stage founder and you're doing your first fundraise and you're doing it on a safe and you're trying to figure out how to price the safe and people are telling you, some people are saying this and some people are saying that, and it's hard for you to tune out the noise. You can explain to them, here's what's going to happen next year and the year after, and here's what your first equity financing round is going to look like, and here's how much they're going to make you set aside for your equity incentive plan, and here's what, and all of these things taken into consideration. Now you have a lot of color of most likely what the next couple years in terms of fundraising and on the legal side of things is going to look like.
Right.
And now with that information, you can start to make some decisions about the present. And it really helps. I mean, and again, and similarly in setting up the company, and it's one of the key things about we were talking about just contracts in general. It's very easy to, you're a company, you want to bring on a customer or you want to set up an agreement for all of your customers, right? You can put anything down on paper and you'll feel completely confident in it until things start to go wrong, right? And when you're working with people who have seen enough agreements go wrong that they can help you fill in the holes as you're drafting it up. I mean, and again, it's not necessarily purely legal. There's human elements to it. There's a lot of it, especially in a commercial agreement by its name. Commercial elements to it. And so when you're working with people who have kind of been around the block and done this as many times as we have, you realize that it's not just about what's legally enforceable and getting it down on paper and all that stuff. It's about kind of having seen this over and over and over and over again and knowing what to think about and how to think about it.
Yeah, no, that's great because people hear you, they see you, they interact with you, they go to your website, they look at you. You're a young guy, right? And I can just see some people going, yeah, well, yeah. But you look at the experience you've had internationally with these massive law firms and the years and years you've put in this, and you've specialized in it. And I just think that adds so much. And then you said, okay, it's time for me to do my own thing. and you walk this line, which is really cool. You've got almost a foot in both camps, right? You're the entrepreneur, you understand what's going on there, and you got the legal side that is so important when you think about, especially tech and startup and venture capital coming in. And I mean, that adds just I'm
Yeah.
way over my head, dude, right? But I mean, that has to add so many areas of complexity. We all watch Shark Tank, right? And they say, well, I'll buy your company, I'll do this. We've got no idea of what goes on behind the scenes after that, dude, because it's
Yeah.
contracts, it's agreements, it's, well, this is what I meant. It's not what I said, right? That's how you help entrepreneurs protect their IP and their ideas and make sure it's set up properly,
Yeah.
right?
My one word, my one cautionary word to any entrepreneurs that are out there listening to this is don't price your companies based on the offers they're making on Shark Tank. You're that is a it's a good deal for those
Yeah,
people because they're on Shark Tank and then they get to work with super connected
yeah,
sharks. But it's not the way that you see things priced. When you don't have Mark Cuban out there putting his, all of his muscle behind your business. So
exactly.
just want to get it out there. But yeah,
No,
it's
and that's
something
good
like
because
that.
entrepreneurs sometimes live in a pipe dream world, right? And by the way, this is
Yeah.
going to be the best thing since sliced bread, And it's like, well, all right, how do you mitigate that? How do you navigate all of that? And it's not just the legal aspect, it's all the relational aspects that you bring to the table of here's how this thing is going to play out, probably, because I've done it a few dozen times, right? And here's
Yeah.
how you need to prepare yourself. And we're here. We're not just the attorneys, right? You're I don't want to say you're a
Yeah.
partner with them, but you're that trusted advisor who's guiding them. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Yes. 100%. And I'm sure that this goes for a lot of other attorneys as well. What we do in terms of counseling clients in some ways is similar to what any attorney does. I have many clients that just in the few years of kind of doing this and being off on my own, and many from the years before that I've become good friends with.
Yeah.
I have people who uh, that started off as clients and now they come down to visit us in Mexico City. And, I mean, the relationship is trust is not the type of thing that exists in a vacuum. And the more you trust someone, the more you are prone to rely on them, and the more that it expands out to different aspects of life. And that's the other kind of beautiful thing about what we do and one thing that my wife actually pointed out to me that I started to realize as I was kind of I met her as we were kind of getting off the ground. I'd started the firm 4 months before I met her. In the first 3 months, I was like, set up the website, got insurance in place, did all this stuff. And then I stopped and I stared at my computer screen and my phone and I was waiting for people to call and the phone wasn't ringing. And I was like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
I've made a huge mistake. And then I started to kind of, when I met her, it was around the time where we had signed, I think, like about a dozen clients in the first 2 months of that year. So this was like month 4 and 5. And I was starting to feel like, okay, this might actually work. I might actually be able to do this. And she would kind of see me on these calls and meeting people and this and that. And we realized that I don't know, I don't want us to sound presumptuous or wrong in any way, but my superpower, if you will, uh, in general, maybe, but also as it relates to this type of work, is I genuinely like meeting new people.
Mhm.
I when I get on calls with people, it's the first time that I'm meeting them. I am excited to hear about their life story, about their business. I just really enjoy it, and it's one of the things that has inspired me in this career in general. And so for me, I get on the phone with clients or potential new clients or whoever it is, and I'm excited to catch up. I'm excited to hear what's going on, and I build those relationships. And it's a genuine thing because it's something that I like to do. And obviously, I'd like to think that also I'm good at what I do,
Right.
and I
That
have
helps.
the expertise and the experience. I'm not just doing a great job without all of those things, but you add into that kind of that human element of um, enjoying meeting new people, bonding, that being the thing that kind of gets me out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
Um, and it all kind of fits together, and it makes my job fun. It makes my life fulfilling. It makes my job meaningful.
Yeah.
And I think that that kind of makes it through in the relationship with clients as well. And you can't fake that. And
Right.
especially when people are relying on you in a lot of ways, and sometimes in difficult times.
Oh
Having
yeah.
that foundation can't really be understated.
That's right. No, that's great because one of my marketing principles is people will buy who you are more than what you do.
Yeah,
Right. And there are lots of attorneys who do what you do, but it's a connection of, and I'm sure you're like me. You will get a few people who call you, have that conversation, and you just don't fit. It's just not a good job. That's okay. I'm all right with
yeah,
that. There's plenty of other people. There's plenty of, at the same time, you get those calls and you're like, dude, we're like brothers from a different mother. This is amazing. And that's
yeah,
how it should be, especially when you're running, a startup firm or a tech company, or you're looking down the road for venture capital or funding, and you need somebody that you can trust, that you can build a relationship with. That's not just, hey, can you write up this document for me because we need it? No, 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 no. This, how do we guide you through this to help you achieve that dream, that goal in the best way possible, and
yeah,
be that, who was it? Bette Midler, be the wind beneath your wings, in a sense, right? And
yeah.
that's the sense I get from you, and the heartbeat behind what you do, Eric. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely. I don't. I try to. One of the things that I'm going for with the firm, for myself, but also for the attorneys that work with me, is I like them to. We work hard during work hours, and then I
Yeah,
like them to generally have their nights and weekends and time with their family or significant others, and you don't get that a lot at the bigger firms. It's just
right.
a different style of life, and that worked for some people.
Yeah,
That didn't really work for me. It didn't work for them. That's how I've ended up so luckily with such high quality, talented individuals who saw life and work and the balance similar to the way that I did. But it was a time. It was like a year and a half ago. So like halfway through, we've been. I started the firm a little over 3 years ago now,
yeah,
and I was out with my wife. We were out at we were out at a party. It was like it was like a club slash a birthday party out with friends. It was a Saturday night, and I got a text from one of my clients who has become a good friend as well. They're also a client. He texted me about something. I left and I gave him a call. This was like Saturday and like around like at midnight or something like that, or 1 a.m. He lives on the West Coast. We were on the East Coast. And I ended up having this like whole long call with him. But at the beginning, we're catching up. I hadn't talked to him in a while, this and that. And I come back in, and my wife's like, "Where were you?" And I was like, "Oh, I was talking to Nick." And she was like, "Nick, your client, you're working?" She's like, "I really wish that you wouldn't have to." And I was like, "No, no, 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 no. Like, I enjoy this part of the
right,
job. He's a friend. He's going through something that he clearly was. He wouldn't call me otherwise."
right.
And we were catching up, and we were, talking about life and work and this and that and solving the problem. And like that is the aspect of the job that I don't mind at all. You
Yeah,
know, if if it's a different time, if something else is going on, and I need to say, hey, I can't right now,
sure.
I can always do that. But the fact that I would take some time out of my Saturday night to do my job and I would enjoy it, uh, I think tells a good amount about where I am
Yeah.
professionally. That I've at least for right now, I've found kind of my fit.
That's cool, man. That is so cool. I think you and I could probably talk for the next hour or two, man. There's so many. So not only have we bonded, but it's just the idea behind what you do and how you have merged these two worlds in a very unique way of
Yeah,
legal and entrepreneurship and passion and friendship, and it's unusual. So well done. And I know it's not like
thank
you
you.
created a business plan to do this. It just is, but it's who you are, and it resonates. And so I want people to reach out to you. If you could like thumbnail, like, or in the ideal target, who should be reaching out to you spectrum wise? Who are good clients?
Yeah. I mean, the good thing about what we do from a business perspective is every company needs a corporate attorney, right? Everyone
Mm,
needs to set a company up. Eventually, they're going to need to hire people or have commercial agreements or potentially raise money. We also happen to work with a lot of investors, mostly like VC investors, family offices, some PE and angel investors. So we kind of get both sides of the equation there. If you're a company or if you're an entrepreneur that's thinking of starting a company, reach out. Would love to answer
awesome.
any questions that you have about what type of entity, how should we set this up, how should we think about equity allocation, all of those questions. We do all of that at the early stages, everything corporate up until you IPO. We have all of that covered. So honestly, if you're a company and you're looking for new corporate counsel, or just kind of outside GC, someone you don't
Yeah.
have anyone in house, you pointed out on our website. We call ourselves your outside in-house legal department. We
Yeah.
have some clients that I talk to almost daily,
Yeah.
and they treat us like we're their internal team,
Yeah.
even though we're not. In a lot of ways, we're less expensive and more responsive.
Yeah.
So any company, especially tech or tech enabled companies that are looking to kind of do things in the right way for this kind of seeking to be venture backed, or maybe already have some venture backing and are looking to scale in the
Yes.
right ways. Plenty of experience with that. And we have a website. They can reach out to us through the website.
Good. I was going to ask you, yeah, where do they go? If you're
Yeah,
sitting here going, how do I get a hold of this dude? Because I like
yeah. www.bowerylegal.com. Bowery, like the road in downtown Manhattan, which is where I came up as a young law student and then young attorney. So that's BOWERYLEGAL.com. So check us out there, and you can reach out to the website, or you can email me, Eric, ERIC, at BoweryLegal.com.
awesome.
That'll go directly to me.
Awesome. And I will capture those. I'm going to put those in the show notes because, as you know, business owners and entrepreneurs, we're a little busy sometimes, but we listen
Yeah.
on our phone, we listen wherever, and I want to make sure that those are in the show notes so you can reach out to Eric. And seriously, if you need corporate counsel, and sometimes we think, well, that's for big companies. No, let me tell you, it's for every company. You need a good attorney to make sure that your documents are right, your agreements are right, to guide you and direct you through the maze of entrepreneurship, so that you don't get yourself in a position where you shouldn't be, and so you can set yourself up properly. If you're a tech company or something, the future can come really fast, and Eric's been around the block a few times, so reach out to him. And I'm going to capture all that, but BoweryLegal.com. And Eric Broad, you have been a phenomenal guest. Thanks for just bringing the passion of who you are to the table and in work, and infusing that. And hopefully some people have got some encouragement just to love what you do, be
Yeah,
great at it, and have that heart to serve and build relationships.
absolutely. Thank you for
And
having me. This has
you
been a pleasure.
you are so welcome, brother. Thanks for listening to Experts Speak. I'll be back next week with another great interview. Take care.